What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer now takes a pit stop in Waco, Texas. We are going to be talking about the Baylor Bears out of the Big 12 Conference, and with all the momentum that they built at the end of last year, they're hoping they can carry it into 25 and possibly into a Big 12 championship. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and helping to support the channel. If you want to support it even further, please be my guest. Do what it says down below me, hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, hey, you might as well ring the bell because turning on notifications during prediction season ensures you don't miss a thing, especially a video from your favorite team. I'm a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of sports media, and if you want to see all the cool stuff I get to do while still being up to date what goes on this very YouTube channel, of course subscribing helps, but you can also follow me on social media at TailgateNate29 on Twitter or X, whatever your preference for the platform, and Instagram. You can even email me. Don't know why that came out like that. You can even email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Want to thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me in any way, shape, or form that you do so, especially through this channel. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us talk about Dave Aranda's Baylor Bears, a guy that has seen his ups and downs with this program. This is a program that has won a Big 12 championship under Dave Aranda, and then they have hit some lows and some not so great seasons. Last year started out a little slow, but that momentum rocketed through the end of the season, and they're going to hope to continue that here in 2025. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview in which the offense will be over here to the left and the defense will be over here to the right. At the end of the video, we'll go through the Baylor football schedule. I'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and I'll tell you what I think overall about the Baylor Bears in 2025. But before we do get started, right down below me are some returning production numbers that just give context to the type of team that Baylor is going to have this season. One of the more top teams in returning production in the country this season, especially offensively. They are, according to ESPN, and they do factor in portal additions up to a certain percentage. Right down below that, your recruiting and transfer portal class ranks are according to 24/7 Sports, and of course they are for the class of 2025. Without further ado, let's jump on into this offense led by Jake Spavital, and well, starting out with the quarterback position, it started out as a very interesting conversation last year because you had Sawyer Robertson and you had Daquan Finn, the guy that transferred in from Toledo. Well, he is gone and is going to be going to his second MAC program in Miami of Ohio to replace the great Gabbert that Miami, Ohio had over there for such a long time. And at the beginning of the season, coming into the season, they weren't really sure which guy was going to end up being that mainstay at the quarterback position. Well, the controversy, the questions, whatever you want to call it, got silenced very, very quickly because Sawyer Robertson came in and he balled out. 3,071 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions on around 62% completion percentage. Now, if you want one thing to pick apart with Sawyer Robertson, you maybe want to see him push the ball downfield a little more consistently. His long touchdown, or I should say his long pass in general last season was 53 yards. So see him push the ball downfield a little bit more and grow his overall pocket presence. While it's not bad, it definitely needs some work and can have some room for improvement. He does those two things. Baylor has got themselves a bona fide stud on their hands. They already do. Sawyer Robertson's a guy that can get outside of the pocket and run 230 yards and 4 touchdowns of production out of the backfield last season, or deciding to tuck it and run, whatever it is, whatever terminology you may want to use. Sawyer Robertson, as long as he makes some necessary improvements, and not even improvements, as long as we see his game grow, I think Baylor's offense is going to be a really, really good thing to watch here in 2025. Now, when you talk about the running back room, well, your top 2 rushers from last season do come back. A 1,000-yard rusher that had 12 touchdowns for you last year in Bryson Washington. Yep, he's back. Dawson Pendergrass had over 650 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground last season. Bam, there's your 1-2 backfield punch. You don't have anything to worry about in your running back stable. Both of those two guys, good experience, and they showed you last year they were really darn good players. And Bryson Washington did that last year as a redshirt freshman, being a redshirt sophomore this year, a year more experience. Yeah, he's going to see some real good playing time, be probably one of the better backs in the country this season. And then Dawson Pendergrass is a true junior. Again, I read off his stat line, not too bad himself. To expand on those further, yards per carry, 5.9 for Washington, 5.5 for Dawson Pendergrass. Yeah, they are two pretty darn good players. Now, the wide receiver slash pass catching room is where you start to delve into some questions with this Baylor program, and it revolves around the wide receiver room. I think the depth in this wide receiver room is still going to be pretty darn solid. You do have your lead man, Josh Cameron, coming back. Did have 754 yards and 10 touchdowns of production for you last season while being Sawyer Robertson's favorite target to throw to. It's because he's pretty darn good. You do have Kobe Prentice coming in from Alabama through the portal. Didn't put up super flashy numbers with the Crimson Tide, but you know the potential and talent is there. Cole Wilson is going to be coming over to this program as well. He's from both Incarnate Word and Texas State, 747 yards in 2023 with 8 touchdowns. Last season with the Bobcats, 630 yards and 4 touchdowns. So you're getting another really good depth piece there. Freshman Taz Williams is a 3-star according to 24/7, and he could provide a really big role. So those 4 guys, I think are going to end up being pretty solid pieces, but it just adds so much more dynamic ability if Ashton Hawkins is going to have his eligibility restored. Now, how likely is that? Number out there, because me personally, I don't really think it's going to happen. I don't know, but the last time we saw this issue with the North Carolina wide receiver, the name is escaping my mind. But when we saw them again, he transferred over from Kent State to go play football at North Carolina. Again, name is escaping my mind. I'm sure all of you out there know who I'm talking about. Then they just said, actually, you're not eligible to do that and you can't play. They corrected it, and he did get in mid-season. Are we going to see the same thing with Ashton Hawkins? Who knows? We'll see. He was the team's second leading receiver last year, and if he is still not eligible and ready to go this season, I think it could be a really, really big detriment to this Baylor Bears wide receiver unit. Now, as I said, they got 4 pieces back there that I think are going to be pretty darn solid. 2 transfers of freshmen, and their lead man and Josh Cameron does come back. But Ashton Hawkins, would provide some really nice consistency for Sawyer Robertson and is just another really good weapon to have out there catching passes for you. Tight end room, depth is going to look a little bit different, but your lead man, Michael Trigg, is going to be coming back. He had a lot of solid production last season, had 395 yards and 3 touchdowns last year, and Michael Trigg will play another big part to this offense in 2025. As far as the offensive line goes, roles are going to need filled, 2 of them to be specific, but returners are going to fill in nicely as experience is going to play a factor. Now, they do have a lot of young talent on that 2 deep. Again, a lot of redshirt sophomores, redshirt freshmen that are waiting in the wings. In fact, a lot of redshirt sophomores as I'm looking at their depth chart right here. But the starting line is very experienced. 3 seniors, 2 juniors. At least that's according to ourlads.com. So experience going to play a pretty vital part here. And again, they're returning some really key pieces in an offensive line that only allowed 19 sacks last season. Could very well see that number shrink in 2025. To look the name up of that wide receiver is really bothering me. Devontae or Tez Walker. So if you remember that situation, Ashton Hawkins, I don't want to necessarily say is similar because obviously Hawkins is not transferring. He's trying to come back and play football for the same program. But again, are we going to see a situation like we saw with Tez Walker where he did come back sort of in the middle of the season, right? Who knows? If that's the case, Baylor's offense is going to get better as the season goes along, and I think it will without Ashton Hawkins anyway, but the sooner Ashton Hawkins can get back, if he's going to get back at all, the better it'll be for this Bears offense that even without Hawkins, as detrimental as it will still be a really good unit in 2025. Defensive coordinator is Matt Polage, however you say the last name. Again, I do apologize for mispronunciations. The defense last year struggled at times, but it started to round in the form during the 6-game win streak that Baylor went on at the end of last season. Again, they started out 2-4, looked like going to be another struggling year. Bam, 6-game win streak, or actually that 6-game win streak might have ended up in the bowl game there as well. So might have started out 3-4, won the last 6. Anyway, 6-game win streak at the end of last season. They really started to round into form, and I think they're going to look to carry that momentum up here into this next season. A pair of edge rushers and a couple more really talented pieces are going to be leaving this defensive line. You're going to lose a ton of really, really solid production off the defensive front. Garmin Rudolph, probably going to be one of the biggest names there. 3.5 sacks, 33 tackles. Yep, he has gone off to the NFL with the Los Angeles Chargers. Another name off the edge. I do believe Steve Linton, his his eligibility has been exhausted, so he will not be coming back to this program. And again, as I said, a lot of other pieces are going to be leaving this defensive line as well. However, Jackie Marshall, he's going to be coming back. Really good defensive lineman for him last year. He will be the face of this defensive line with some really nice, solid pieces on the interior. So Jackie Marshall, sorry, on the interior. So Jackie Marshall last season, 40 tackles, 3 sacks last season. And again, a lot of solid pieces in on the interior. Guys like Cooper Lands and Devontae Tezino, as well as some other really good pieces that await in the wings. But those three guys up front going to be a pretty good force on the defensive front. With the solid pieces on the interior. Matt Jones, a massive hit to this linebacking squad. Matt Jones was a stud for this Baylor team last season. 104 tackles with 4 sacks, 6 passes defended, led the team in sacks, was second on the team in passes defended last season. He was everywhere for this Baylor team, and they are going to be missing him a ton. However, even with 104 tackles, he was not the lead man because his running mate in Keaton Thomas had 2 more tackles than him at 106. 2.5 sacks, did pick off a pass last season as well, returned it for a pick six. He was the leading tackler on this team last year. He'll be surrounded by a new troop of linebacker transfers. Now, there still are some solid returning pieces here, but Amarian Winston, Travion Barnes, and Matthew Fobbs White are all 3 transfers that come in that are projected to start here for this team. Again, very few returning pieces in this linebacking core. Phoenix Jackson is another transfer, while Caleb Burns is a really talented freshman that is going to be entering this team. But you overall take a look at the Baylor linebacking room, led by Keaton Thomas. I think it's going to be a pretty solid unit. Corey Gordon out of the defensive backfield, he is going to be transferring out. A pretty substantial loss out of the safety room specifically for this Baylor program. 34 tackles and tied for the team lead with 3 interceptions last season. However, the main core of really talented secondary pieces are going to be coming back, led by Devin Bobby, had the 3 interceptions, as well as I believe being a top 3, yes, was the 3rd leading tackler for this team last season by a wide margin. You're also going to get back Carl Williams the 4th and Tevin Williams the 3rd. I don't believe related in any facet. Caden Jenkins will be back to play a corner for you, and then Devin Turner is a transfer coming over from Northwestern, where he had 79 tackles in 2023 and 51 tackles last season to tackle along with 3 interceptions. This Baylor secondary is scary. Now, punters and kickers are people too, so let's show them some love. Connor Hawkins is your new primary kicker, while Palmer Williams is going to return to do the punting duty. So overall, you look at this Baylor team. Sawyer Robertson improves and develops on his game. Bam, your offense is set even without Ashton Hawkins, even though it is a really unfortunate situation. Bam, defense should still be really darn solid. However, how does the schedule play out for this Baylor team? Well, you're looking at it right now. Here is the Baylor Bear football schedule for the 2025 season. But before we dive on into this, let us talk about some numbers right down below me. Baylor, plus 650 odds to win the conference. Guys, that's one of the top marks in the wide open Big 12. Currently, as of recording this video, they are tied for second. They are tied with Texas Tech and Arizona State for the second best odds to win the conference, only behind that of Kansas State and Utah. Well, look at that. They play a lot of those teams here on their schedule. In fact, 3 of them, I do believe, if my math is counting correctly. This is also a Baylor team with plus 1,700 odds to win the national championship. So again, a lot of things have to go right for Baylor. And again, you even have to survive the Big 12 to get a chance to play in the college football playoff. And we know that is a lot easier said than done. There are teams that fall victim to the Big 12 every single season. Again, those odds right below me are as of recording this video. They are subject to change. No, it is not me telling you to go place your money. It is me telling you, however, or just giving you some context on how good the odds makers on how good the odds makers think Baylor is going to be this year. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. Let's go ahead and start by predicting their schedule with the first game up on the list, the Auburn Tigers. Now, when you look at Auburn across the board, there's a ton of newness, but there is a ton of talent. And Auburn, to me, I said it in my Auburn video that I posted yesterday, this team is too talented for everything to not come together at some point. I don't think that's going to be week 1 of the college football season. You need Jackson Arnold to really improve and get better, and especially find that dynamic ability that we know he has, but he showed virtually not at all during his time at Oklahoma. However, the wide receiver room, I think going to pose a very, very good challenge for this Baylor secondary because I think it could be one of the better wide receiver rooms that we see across the entire country. Very well might be in the top five. Auburn is loaded in the wide receiver department. Running back stable is going to be pretty solid. The offensive line is going to be really good and experienced, and the defense returns a ton of really big pieces, especially in that secondary as well. To me, this really is a pretty big toss-up game, but I think it comes down to Jackson Arnold. Right now I trust Sawyer Robertson a lot more than Jackson Arnold. I think Baylor's got a couple guys, especially in that wide receiver slash tight end room with Michael Trigg, guys that are a little bit of some matchup problems. And I think Baylor is going to beat Auburn in this game, especially it's a Friday night, probably, or I should say a Friday, probably a night game with Auburn going on the road. And Auburn's got to figure a lot out to begin the season. And I really like this Baylor team. They continue their momentum from last season. They beat Auburn week 1 of the college football season, but then you move down the list to this game on the road against SMU. This is going to be a really, really tough one for Baylor to win. Kevin Jennings coming back. I like him a lot, and he is going to lead this SMU offense once again this upcoming season. And other than that, they just got a lot of other really good pieces. Jordan Hudson, Romello Brinson as wide receivers, Derek McFall and Chris Johnson transferring in are some really big running back pieces for him. They brought in stud interior defensive lineman transfers with Terry Webb and Jeffrey Emba to pair with a team that also returns a lot in the secondary, much like Baylor. And while that secondary has got to get better this season and could have trouble slowing down this Baylor team overall, I think SMU's got enough pieces surrounding, or I should say overall, maybe outside of the secondary that could see its struggles here. I think they got enough pieces to slow down the Baylor run game, and I think their offense is going to be dynamic enough to get through this Baylor defense that, again, could still be trying to figure out some of their woes at the beginning of last season, at the start of this year. How likely is that? Probably not. But what I think is pretty likely, probably 60-40, I do think SMU is going to win this game. I think they are poised for another college football playoff run, and I think they're one of the better teams in the ACC. But Baylor will easily be able to win that game against Samford. Absolutely no qualms or quarrels or problems there. Then you dive on into the conference slate. And again, it is a tough conference slate because the Big 12 is a tough conference this year. Arizona State returns just about everybody. Sam Levitt is back. Jordan Tyson is back. And even though you're trying to fill in the shoes of Cam Scadaboo in the running back room, hey, former Army back Kanye Udo, I think it's going to be able to do that really, really well. And the Arizona State defense that had a lot of really good moments last year should improve its pass rush and returns a lot of familiar faces from a season ago as well, including, I believe, that safety duo of Rouser, and the other name is escaping my mind. I'll think about it here in 1 second. But I do think Arizona State is going to win this game. Xavier Alford and Miles Rouser. There you go, along with a ton of other really good secondary pieces. I think Arizona State is going to be able to get this win on the road. Going to be a tough one for the Sun Devils, though. Again, Baylor can give a lot of teams a lot of problems, but I really like this Sun Devils team. I think Kenny Dillingham has done a phenomenal job. They proved everyone wrong last year, and they're not going to sneak up on anyone this season, but I really do think this team is that good. Arizona State beats Baylor, and Baylor, again, another shaky start. They start out here at 2-2, and I think the shakiness continues. Welcome to the Big 12 Conference. You're going to lose a game on the road or at home that you have no expectation of losing. And to me, that one right now is against Oklahoma State. It could be Cincinnati, it could be Arizona later on, but I think it comes early. And I think it comes early, especially if, maybe there are rumblings of Ashton Hawkins coming back, and maybe he's about to get back at this point. They still don't have him back. Whatever. Put Ashton Hawkins to the side for 1 second. Mike Gundy is simply one of the coaches in the country you do not count out. Period. End of story. And there is absolutely no way I see Oklahoma State having as abysmal of a season as they did last year. The entire offensive line is rebuilt. They have some phenomenal transfers coming into the wide receiver room, especially Jalen Lloyd, who's a speedster. Zane Flores is going to be back at quarterback, and I think he's a tremendous talent. The defense is going to be rebuilt that has some really nice solid pieces, especially coming in through the transfer portal. I think Oklahoma State's going to compete this year, and they very well could make it back to a bowl game because, again, never count out Mike Gundy. I think they upset Baylor at home, but then Baylor gets a very, very big bounce-back win at home against Kansas State. Baylor's going to be searching for a win here to try to build some momentum. They are really going to need this one. However, I think Baylor gets it done. The Kansas State secondary, gave Wildcat fans a lot of heartaches last season, and I'm not saying this year is going to be exactly the same. I think the secondary for the Wildcats does get better this season. It is definitely still a unit that must see its improvements, and if it doesn't, well, could end up being quite the long season for the Kansas State faithful, and also if Avery Johnson does not take the next step forward in his development. I still like Avery Johnson. I think he's going to do that, but with some of the secondary problems, and even without Ashton Hawkins, Baylor has all the pieces necessary to be able to beat you downfield, as well as the fact that Sawyer Robertson should take a step forward in his deep ball throws this year. I like Baylor against Kansas State. You do get your first bye week after that point, and then you get this road game against TCU. TCU also a team last season that was really, really good. They were pretty much in the same boat as Baylor, not in terms of how they got their wins, but record-wise, exactly to end the regular season. TCU was 8-4, and I love them to repeat such a feat this season. Josh Hoover is coming back, and he might be one of the more non-talked about quarterbacks in the entire country. Or maybe I'm just not reading the right websites. Who knows? Josh Hoover is a baller, and he is going to be a really, really good quarterback. Dare I say, one of the top 3 in the Big 12 this season. I think they did great in the wide receiver transfer portal room. The defense returns a ton of experience that can beat you in plenty of different ways. In the secondary up front, guys, Bud Clark is still on this team. He was on the national championship team, the team that made the national title, got stomped by Georgia in 2020. Yes, in 2022, sorry, even. So you have to go 1 year back. Guys, I think TCU's got all the pieces to be a real contender in the Big 12 this year, and they're the home team in this game. Go ahead and give me the TCU Horned Frogs to beat the Baylor Bears. So you're looking at this Baylor team, and it's playing out pretty similarly to how last season did. Well, guess what? It's going to finish similarly as well. I can see this Baylor team going on an absolute tear. Plus, the schedule, especially in conference play, to me is a lot more front loaded. Arizona State, Kansas State, TCU, Oklahoma State, I think is a big trap game. Cincinnati, to me, look, Brendan Sorsby is going to be coming back. I just don't think they have the pieces necessary to compete with Baylor. And then as far as Central Florida goes, yes, Scott Frost is back, and he has won there before, but it might take him time to get back into the coaching flow, and it's a program left in a very, very dark place, or maybe not a super dark place, but it's not left in a very good one after Gus Malzahn takes the offensive coordinator job at Florida State. So I do think Central Florida needs a couple years to really build up. They're going to be rebuilding a lot through the portal, and I do think Baylor wins that one. Baylor, I also think, continues this momentum and beats Utah. And even though I'm a big fan of Utah this year, I love Kyle Whittingham, and I think Utah is going to make or have a bounce back season this year. I just don't see Kyle Whittingham teams having 2 down years in a row. The skill positions and the quarterback room are all rebuilt, but you know the fire and passion and energy that Utah defenses are going to play with. I think there are going to be times this year, and again, teams that are going to be able to exploit a lot of the things Utah will have trouble with. I think Baylor can be one of those, and Baylor does beat Utah. I also think they beat Arizona. Now, look, I think a lot of people are sleeping on this Wildcat team. I think Arizona's going to be a lot better than people are giving them credit for at this current moment. However, I do think Baylor is more talented, and I like Sawyer Robertson with the pieces around him a lot more than I like Noah Fifita with the pieces around him. The entire offensive package, I favor Baylor, and I got them winning that game, as well as the defense for Arizona needs a lot of work, and then Baylor should be able to beat Houston the final week of the regular season, going on a 5-game win streak and finishing off with an 8-4 season. Maybe not the type of year that some Baylor fans are thinking, but again, welcome to the reality of the Big 12. You got 2 really, really tough non-conference games. In fact, I actually even put the wrong conference record. So 8-4, 6-3 in conference, not 5-4, 6-3 in conference. Baylor could get into a Big 12 title game, y'all. They absolutely could. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.